So last night I had an interesting and, as always, timely dream because I am working out a word in the middle of recording it that this dream fits with. So I was traveling and I now know it was in Turkey, but a lot of things happened in the dream, and I was with a group of people doing various things, various tasks. They were good things, but there was a hunger in me, like we weren't doing the thing we were supposed to do. And I'd see the town laid out, and beyond it, I would see these pale stone spires or pillars, and my soul would just be tugged in that direction. Like I knew they were important, and I knew I wanted to get there. And they kept appearing in the dream. And finally, at one point, near the end of the dream, I knew that the trip was coming to a close. And I knew that it had been a lovely trip and that we had done a lot of good things, but I needed to get to those pillars. And suddenly I knew it was Cappadocia. And I knew that these pillars were in Turkey, in that town. And I wanted to get there. So when I woke up and I looked that up, they're called fairy chimneys, the fairy chimneys of Cappadocia. And they are said to have been the place of refuge for persecuted Christians from Rome in the early church, which I found very interesting. And it brought to mind so many other dreams that I have had over the past 2 years where I am trying to get to the mountains. I often am in a travel situation in these dreams. It's always linked to like a time of leisure where I am moving about in travel, doing things that they're not bad, like they're lovely, and the trip's been fine, but it hasn't been the best and most excellent thing I could have been doing. And I've known that I need to do whatever I can, get the plane ticket or purchase a car or find the best route to get to these mountains. And they always hold such an allure to me. Like I am always full of wonder and excitement to just get to those mountains. So anyway, you will see why this fits so well with the word I'm going to put out. And yeah, let me know. Maybe you've been dreaming about high places, about mountains, about trying to get to a higher place.
A friend put it really well to me the other day. She said there is a wounding that travels along bloodlines, family lines, for generations when there's been a trauma that went deep and wide. So that even the great-great-great-great-grandchildren of a family that suffered an injustice will bear inside them seeds of deep bitterness, rage, hate. And they may stay dormant their entire life, or they may get watered during their lifetime when some new injustice crops up, and a wildly noxious vine with spikes will come shooting up out of them, threatening to burn the world down. I've been seeing that happening. Ancient seeds of bitterness are being watered by the enemy. They're being watered inside all of us, and we have to decide whether or not we are going to let the thing grow. I was confronted in Jeremiah 6:14 by a question. I read this: "They have treated superficially the bloody broken wound of my people, saying peace, peace, when there is no peace." And it forced me to ask, what is this wound that is superficially being treated? What is the ancient wound of God's people, the wound that's never closed? And so I bowed my head in prayer and I asked, what is this wound? And this is what he told me. They got tired of being hunted, and they didn't know how to Psalm 91. They didn't know how to take refuge in me. And so they took refuge in other things. They have been sheltering under the wrong wings, deep in shadow, under a spell woven from perpetual darkness. My mind is filled with imagery, first of the darkness that must have fallen over the homes as the angel of death passed over the lintels, some of which had blood, some of which did not. Imagery of the shadow that must have been cast by the pillar of cloud under the desert sun. Imagery of the impossible vastness of wings when he cried out, Oh, my people, how I long to gather you under my wing like a mother bird gathers her young. The people of God have been a hunted people, and they will be a hunted people until he comes again. We are foxes running from the hounds that are out for blood. It's only in the spiritual that we are truly untouchable. Like so many of our ancestors before us, we're starting to get a hint of the lesson that must be learned, that there may be coming a time where our bodies are not safe, where our bodies will be hunted, where earthly refuges will be set up and sought for, but ultimately will not provide the safety that we might crave. We've been forced to learn what it is to retreat into our spirits and tuck ourselves under his spiritual wings. We've been forced to learn what it is to nestle up close, deep, deep, deep into his shadow, tucking ourselves up against his warmth, and learning what it's like to feel the peace descend upon us in spite of the vitriol, the shame, the pressures that are swirling around out in the open, out from under cover. Have you learned that yet? Have you yet grabbed hold of the treasure of Psalm 91? We're about to see the days of which the scripture was written. They will say peace, peace, but there will be no peace. The enemy has set up a trap. He intends to cause an almighty ruckus on earth that will have people clamoring for safety, climbing over each other to get to the emergency exits. And the enemy will call out really loudly, "Come over here. Do you see my outspread wings? Tuck under here. I'll keep you safe. I'll shelter you." And in their haste to save their bodies, they will fall for the trap. They will bow. They will forget the language and the lesson of being a people of tents and booths, temporary earthly shelter, because we're looking forward to an eternal shelter that is found only in our God. They will look for the strength and the fortification of those city walls I just recently spoke about. They will hunger for those cities. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Do not grow weary. He never promised us safe earthly passage. He just didn't. Our God can work miracles. I've heard stories. I've experienced the reality of him hiding us in plain sight. He can do that, but he doesn't promise it. The one thing he does promise is that he is a shelter for our souls, a shelter for our spirits, that we are a people protected and untouchable, even if it means we lose our bodies. Allow him to administer healing to any open wound you have of the fear of what man can do to you. Let him heal that brokenness inside you, because the enemy is looking for those wounds lying open and bleeding on the people of God all across the earth. He'll use it against you. It's kind of like how a shark smells blood. Let God close it up. Let him be your shelter, your resting place. Let him breathe into you courage and eternal eyes that are looking beyond this life, that understand what peace really is, that it's not found here. Go ahead and do that right now. Just close your eyes. See his wings. They're enormous. They blot out the sky. See them slowly coming around in an arc to create a dome of protection over you, over your home, over your city. See him gently sweeping inward, gathering up every one of your prodigals, every one of your loved ones who've been trying to get by out from under the cover of his protection. See him pulling them close, close, close. See them starting to gather around you in a warm huddle close to his heart. Do you feel that? Do you feel the peace? That right there is Psalm 91. That right there is the mending of any open wound you might have had. If you want to interact with any of these episodes, this podcast has an Instagram account over at Mildly Prophetic. If you hop over there, you can share the things you've seen and heard. You can ask me questions. Basically, you can add your breadcrumbs to mine. And if we gather them all up, then what a feast it'll be.